ventilation. I can't control it. I'll probably get like a mic or something in the near future so y'all can hear me more. Yeah, we back on the book, man. I had to take a little break. You know what I'm saying? So we're done with the first section of the book, As a Man Thinketh. It got 7, including the foreword, the foreword. It got 7 chapters. You know what I'm saying? If you ain't got into that, or if you just now getting here, go back and read those. Either get the book or just go ahead and go through the videos. You know what I'm saying? We on chapter 2 of the mastery of destiny. Science of self-control. We live in a scientific age. Men of science are numbered by thousands, and they are ceaselessly searching, analyzing, and experimenting with a view to discover the increase of knowledge. The shelves of our libraries, both public and private, are heavy with the load of imposing volumes of scientific subjects, and the wonderful achievements of modern science are always before us, whether in our homes or in our streets, in the country or town, on land or sea. There shall we there shall we have before us some marvelous device, some recent accomplishment of science for adding to our comfort, including our speed, for saving the labor of our hands. Yet with our vast store of scientific knowledge and its startling and rapidly increasing results in the world of discovery and invention, there is, in this age, a branch of science which has so far fallen into decay as to have become almost forgotten. A science, nevertheless, which is of greater importance from the other sciences combined, and with all science would be subserve the ends of selfishness and aid in man's destruction. I refer to the science of self-control. Our modern scientists study the elements and forces which are outside themselves with the object of controlling and utilizing them. The ancients studied the elements and forces which were within themselves with a view to controlling and utilizing them, and the ancients produced such mighty masters of knowledge in this direction that to this day they are held in reverence as gods, and the vast religious organizations of the world are based upon their achievements. Wonderful as are the forces in nature, they are vastly inferior to the combination of intelligent forces which comprise the mind of man, and which dominate and direct the blind mechanical forces of nature. Therefore, it follows that to understand, control, and direct the inner forces of passion and desire, will, and intellect, it is to be in possession of the destinies of men and nations. As in ordinary science they are, in this divine science, degrees of attainment, a man is great in knowledge, great in himself, and great in his influence on the world, in the measure that he is great in self-control. He who understands and dominates the forces of external nature is the natural sciences, but he who understands and dominates the internal forces of mind is the divine sciences, and the laws which operate in gaining a knowledge of external appearances operate also in gaining knowledge of internal verities. A man cannot become an accomplished scientist in a few weeks or months, nay, not even a few years. Only after many years of painstaking investigation can he speak with authority and be ranked among the masters of science. Likewise, a man cannot acquire self-control and become possessed of the wisdom and peace-giving knowledge which that self-control confers, but by many years of patient labor, a labor which is all the more arduous because of it is silent, and both unrecognized and unappreciated by others. And he would pursue his science successfully must learn to stand alone and to toil unrewarded. As far as any outward emolument, I can't even say the word, emolument is concerned. The natural science pursues. So I'm gonna spit this gum out. The natural science pursues in acquiring his particular kind of knowledge, in the following five orderly and sequential steps. Observation. He is closely and persistently observes the fact of nature. Experiment. Having become acquainted by repeated observations with the certain facts, he experiments with those facts. With a few of the discovery of natural laws, he puts his facts through rigid processes of analysis, and so finds out that is useless of what of value, and he rejects the former and retains the latter. Classification. Having accumulated and verified a mass of facts by numberless observations and experiments, he commences to classify those facts, to arrange them in orderly groups with the object of discovering some underlying law, some hidden and unifying principle which governs, regulates, and binds together these facts. Dedication. Thus he passes on to the fourth step of dedication from the facts and results which are before him. He discovers certain invariable modes of action, and thus reveals the hidden laws of things. Knowledge. Having proven and established certain laws, it may be said of such a man that he knows. He is a scientist, a man of knowledge. One second. If y'all can hear me over this thing, yo, I apologize. I'm at work. But the attainment of scientific knowledge is not the end. Great as it is, men do not attain knowledge for themselves alone, nor to keep it locked secretly in their hearts, like a beautiful jewel in a dark chest. The end of such knowledge is use, service, the increase of the comfort and happiness of the world. Thus, when a man becomes a scientist, he gives the world the benefit of his knowledge and unselfishly bestows upon mankind the results of his labors. Thus, beyond knowledge, there is a further step of use, that is, the right and unselfish use of knowledge and acquired, the application of knowledge to invention for the common weal. It would be noted that 5 steps of process enumerated follow in orderly succession, and that no man can become a scientist who omits one of them. Without the first step of systematic observation, for instance, he could not even enter the realm of knowledge of nature's secrets. At first, the searcher for such knowledge has before him a universe of things. These things he does not understand. Many of them, indeed, seem to be irreconcilably opposed one to the other, and there is an apparent confusion. But by patiently and laboriously pursuing these 5 processes, he discovers the order, nature, essences of things, perceives the central law or laws which bind them together in harmonious relationship, and so puts in an end to confusion and ignorance. As with natural sciences, so with the divine scientist, he must pursue with the same self-sacrificing diligence 5 progressive steps in the attainment of self-knowledge, self-control. These 5 steps are the same as with the natural sciences, but the process is reversed. The mind, instead of being centered upon external things, is turned back upon itself, and the investigations are pursued in the realm of mind, of one's own mind, instead of that of matter. At first, the researcher for divine knowledge is confronted with the mass of desires, passions, emotions, ideas, and intellections, which he calls himself, which is the basis of all his actions and from which his life proceeds. The combination of invisible yet powerful forces appears confusingly. Some of them stand apparently in direct conflict with each other, without any appearance of hope or reconciliation. His mind in its entirety too, with his life, which proceeds from that mind, does not seem to have any equitable relation to many other minds and lives about him. And altogether there is a condition of pain and confusion from which he would fain escape. Thus he begins by keenly realizing the state of ignorance, but no one could acquire either natural or divine knowledge, if he were convinced that without study or labor he already possessed it. With such perception of one's ignorance, there comes the desire of knowledge, and the novice in self-control enters upon ascending pathway in which are the following 5 steps. Introspection. This coincides with the observation of the natural sciences. The mental eye is turned like a searchlight upon the inner things of the mind, and its subtle and even varying processes are observed and carefully noted. It is stepping aside from selfish gratification, from the excitements of worldly pleasures and ambitions, in order to observe with the object of understanding one's nature is the beginning of self-control. Hitherto, a man has been blindly and impotently borne along the impulses of his nature, the mere creature of things and circumstances, but now he puts a check upon the impulses, and instead of being controlled, begins to control. Self-analysis. Having observed the tendencies of the mind, they are then closely examined and are put through a rigid process of analysis. The evil tendencies, those that produce painful effects, are separated from the good tendencies, those that produce peaceful effects, and the various tendencies with the particular actions they produce, and the definite results which invariably spring from these actions are gradually grasped upon the understanding, which is at last enabled to follow them in their swift, subtle interplay and profound ramifications. It is a process of testing and improvement, and for the searcher, a period being tested, improved, adjusted. By this time, the practical student of these things divine has clearly before him every tendency and aspect of his nature, down to the profoundest promptings of his mind, and the most subtle motives of his heart. This is not a spot or corner left, which he has not explored or illuminated with the light of self-examination. He is familiar with every weak and selfish point, every strong and virtuous quality. It is considered the height of the wisdom to be able to see ourselves as others see us, but the practitioner of self-control goes far beyond this. He not only sees himself as others, he sees himself. He not only sees himself as others, he sees himself as he is. I like that. Thus standing face to face with himself, not striving to hide away from any secret fault, no longer defending himself with pleasant flatteries, neither underrating nor overrating himself or his powers, or no more cursed with self-praise or self-pity. He sees the full magnitude of the task in which lies before him, sees dearly ahead of the heights of self-control, and knows what work he has to do to reach them. He is no longer in a state of confusion, but has gained a glimpse of the laws in which operate in the world of thought, and he now begins to adjust his mind in accordance to those laws. This is a process: weeding, sifting, cleansing, as the former weeds cleans and prepares the ground for its crops. So the student removes the weeds of evil from his mind, cleanses and purifies it, preparatory to sowing the weeds of righteousness, actions which shall produce the harvest of well-ordered life, righteousness. Having adjusted his thoughts and deeds to this minor laws which operate in mental activities in the production of pain and pleasure, unrest and peace, sorrow and bliss, he now perceives that there is involved in those laws one great central law, which, like the law of gravitation in the natural world, is supreme in the world of mind, a law of which all thoughts and deeds are subservient, and by which they are regulated and kept in their proper sphere. This is the law of justice and righteousness, which is universal and supreme. To this law he now conforms. Instead of thinking and acting blindly as the nature of it is stimulated and appealed to by outward things, he subordinates his thoughts and deeds to this central principle. He is no longer acts for himself, but does what is right, what is universally and eternally right. He is no longer the abject slave of his nature and circumstances. He is the master of his nature and circumstances. He is no longer carried hither or thither on the forces of his mind. He controls and guides those forces to the accomplishments of his purposes, thus having his nature in control and subjection, not thinking thoughts nor good deeds which oppose the righteous law, and which therefore the law annuls with suffering and defeat. He rises above the dominion of sin and sorrow, ignorance and doubt, and is strong and calm and peaceful, pure knowledge. By thinking right and acting right, he proves by experience the existence of the divine law in which the mind is framed and which is the guiding and unifying principle of all human affairs and events, whether individual and national. Thus, by perfecting himself in self-control, he acquires divine knowledge and reaches the point where it may be said of him as of natural sciences. And he knows he has mastered the science of self-control and has brought knowledge out of ignorance, order of confusion. He has acquired the knowledge of self, which includes knowledge of all men, the knowledge of one's own life, which embraces knowledge of all life. As for all minds and all the same in essence, differing only in one degree, are framed upon the same law, and in the same thoughts and acts, by whatsoever individual they will wrote, always produce the same results. But the divine and peace bestowing knowledge, as in the case of the natural scientists, is not gained for oneself alone. But if this were so, the aim of evolution would be frustrated, and is not in the nature of things, and falls short of ripening and accomplishment. And indeed, he who thought to gain his knowledge solely for his own happiness would most surely fail. So beyond the fifth step of pure knowledge, there is a still further one of wisdom, which is the right application of the knowledge acquired, the pouring out upon the world unselfishly without stint. The result of one labors thus accelerating progress and uplifting humanity. It may be said of men who have not gone back into their own nature to control and purify it, that they cannot clearly distinguish between good and evil, right and wrong. They reach after those things which they think will get them pleasure, and try to avoid those things they believe that will cause them pain. The source of their action is self. You only discover right painfully in the fragmentary way, by periodically passing through severe sufferings and lashings of conscience. But he who practices self-control and passing through the 5 processes, which are the 5 stages of growth, gains a knowledge in which enables him to act from the moral law which sustains the universe. He knows good and evil, right and wrong, and thus knowing them, lives in accordance with good and right. He no longer needs to consider what is pleasant or what isn't, or what is unpleasant, but does what is right. His nature is harmony with the conscience, and there is no remorse. His mind is in unison with the great law, and there is no one suffering in sin. For him, evil is ended, and good, and good, all is in all. We're gonna run this for about 30 minutes, y'all. So I'm gonna go to the next chapter. Cause and effect in human conduct. It is an axiom with the sciences that every effect is related to a cause. Apply this to the realm of human conduct, and there is revealed the principle of justice. Every scientist knows, and now all men believe, that perfect harmony prevails throughout every portion of the physical universe, from the speck of dust to the greatest sun. Everywhere there is exquisite adjustment in the sidereal universe, with its millions of suns rolling majestically through space and carrying with them their respective systems of revolving planets, its vast nebula, its seas of meteors, and its vast army of comets traveling through illimitable space with inconceivable velocity. Perfect over prevails, and again in the natural world with this multitudinous, I ain't even say the word right, motionless aspects of life as and its infinite variety of forms where are the clearly defined limits of specific laws through the operation of which all confusion is avoided and unity and harmony internally obtained. If this universal harmony could be arbitrarily broken, even in one small particular, the universe would cease to be. There could be no cosmos, but only universe chaos. Nor can it be possible in such a universal law that there should there should exist any personal power which is above, outside, superior to such law in the sense and that can deny it and set it aside. For whatsoever being exists, whether they be men or gods, they exist by virtue of such law, and the highest, best, and wisest among all beings would manifest his greater wisdom by his more complete obedience to the law, which is wiser than wisdom, than which nothing more perfect can be devised. All things, whether visible or invisible, are subservient to and fall within the scope of this infinite internal law of causation, as all things seen obeyed. So all things unseen, the thoughts or deeds of men, whether secret or open, cannot escape it. Do right, it recompenseth. Do one wrong, the equal retribution must be made. One second. Perfect justice opposes the universe. Perfect justice regulates human life and conduct. All the varying conditions of life as they obtain in the world today are the result of this law reacting on human conduct. Man can and does choose what causes he shall set in operation, but he cannot change the nature of the effects. He can decide what thoughts he shall think and what deeds he shall do, but he has no power over the results of these thoughts and deeds that are regulated by overruling law. I don't really believe that. That's a half and half, depending on the situation. Man has all the power to act, but has power that ends with the act committed. The result of act cannot be altered and annulled or escaped. It is irrevocable. Evil thoughts and deeds produce conditions of suffering. Good thoughts and deeds determine conditions of blessedness. Thus man's power is limited to, and his blessedness or misery is determined by his own conduct. To know this truth renders life simple, plain, and unmistakable, and all crooked paths are straightened out, and the heights of wisdom are revealed, and to the open door to salvation from evil and suffering is perceived and entered. Life may be likened to a sum in arithmetic. It is bewildering, difficult, and complex to the pupil who has not yet grasped the key to its correct solution. But once this is perceived and laid hold of, it becomes astonishingly simple, astonishingly simple, as it was formerly profoundingly perplexing. Some idea of this relative simplicity and complexity of life may be grasped by the fully recognizing and realizing the fact that while there are scores and perhaps hundreds of ways in which a sum may be done wrong, there is only one way to be which it can be done right. And that when the right way is found, the pupil knows it to be the right. His perplexity vanishes, and he knows that he has mastered the problem. It is true that the pupil, while doing his sum incorrectly, may think he has done it correctly. but he is not sure. His perplexity is still there. And if he can, and if he is an earnest and apt pupil, he will recognize his own error when it is pointed out by the teacher. So in life, men may think they are living rightly while they are continuing through ignorance to live wrongly. But the presence of doubt, perplexity, and unhappiness are sure indication that the right way has not yet been found. Let's go for women too, not just men. There are foolish and careless pupils who would like to pass a sum as correct before they have acquired a true knowledge of figures by eye and the skill of the teacher. Quickly detect and expose the fallacy, so in life there can be no falsifying of results. The eye of the great law reveals and exposes. Twice 5 will make 10 to all eternity, and no amount of ignorance, stupidity, and delusion can bring the result up to 11. If one looks superficially at a piece of cloth, he sees it as a piece of cloth. But if it goes farther and inquires into its manufacturer and examines it closely and attentively, he sees it that it is composed of a combination of individual threads, and that while the threads are interdependent, each thread pursues its own way throughout, never becoming confused with its sister thread. It is this entire absence of confusion between the particular threads that which constitutes the finished work of a piece of cloth. Any inharmonious commingling of thread would result in a bundle of waste or a useless rag. I like that. Life is like a piece of cloth, and the threads of which it is composed of individual lives. The threads, while being interdependent, are not confound in one of the other. Each follows its own course. Each individual suffers and enjoys the consequences of his own deed, and not of the deeds of another. The course of each is simply and definite, and the whole forming a complicated yet harmonious combination of sequences. There are action and reaction, deed and consequences, cause and effect, and a counterbalancing reaction, consequence. And the fact that it's always in exact ratio with the initiatory impulse. A durable and satisfactory piece of cloth cannot be made from shoddy material, and the threads of selfish thoughts and bad deeds will not produce a useful and beautiful life, a life that will wear well and bear close inspection. Each man makes or mars his own life, and is not made or marred by his neighbor, by anything external to himself. Each thought he thinks, each deed he does, is another thread, shoddy or genuine, woven into the garment of his life, and he makes the garment so much he wears it. He is not responsible for the neighbor's deeds. He is not and the custodian of his neighbor's actions. He is responsible only for his own deeds. He is the custodian of his own actions. The problem of evil subsists in a man's own evil deeds, and is solved if those deeds are purified, says Rousseau. Man seek no longer the origin of evil. Doubt thyself. Art is origin. Effect can never be divorced from cause. It can never be of a different nature from cause. Emerson says, justice is not postponed. A perfectly equity adjusts the balances in all parts of life. And there he has profound sense in which cause and effect are simultaneous, and a form of one perfect whole. Thus, upon the instant that a man thinks, say, a cruel thought or does a cruel deed, the same instant he has entered his own mind. He is not the same man he was in the previous instance. He is a little viler and a little more unhappy, and in a number of such successive thoughts and deeds will produce a cruel and wretched man. The same thing applies to the contrary. Thinking of a kind thought and doing a good deed, a kind deed, and immediate nobility and happiness attended. The man is better than he was before, and a number of such deeds would produce a great and blissful soul. Thus individual human conduct determines by the faultless law of cause and effect, an individual learning of that to demerit individual greatness and meanings, individual happiness and wretchedness. What a man thinks that he does, what he does is what he is. If he is perplexed, unhappy, restless, or wretched, let him look to himself, for there and nowhere else is the source of all his trouble. There go the 30 piece right there. Hey, if y'all ain't caught on yet, or if y'all think I'm moving too fast or not moving fast enough, hey, go watch the other videos, man. Shoot, hey, check me out, man. This is my channel. This is what I'll be doing in the process. You know what I'm saying? I'll check y'all later.